Hey, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark here, host of Minds of the Mighty podcast. And this isn't just your ordinary podcast. This is where we get real with Olympians, pro athletes, celebrities, and other amazing high achievers who've all conquered their fears and challenges and come out successful on the other side. So every week, you're going to get unforgettable conversations. You're going to get information on how to move things forward and powerful, powerful validation for you building your own dreams. So hit that subscribe button, spread the love, and let's go. Hey everyone, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark here, your host of Minds of the Mighty podcast. And I'm so excited for today's guest. And I'll just let you guys know a little bit that him and I were talking for an hour. And how we met was like so funny because I just actually had this intuitive thought and like I should just find Nick on LinkedIn and invite him to the podcast. He'd be phenomenal on the season of the reality hit show on Netflix, which is Love is Blind. And I will be real with you guys. I actually only watched the one season and the one season that Nick was in, which I think was season 3. Was it season 3 or 2? Just season 2. See, that's how much I know about it, right? But that was the season that I watched all the way, and Nick definitely stood out, and for good reason. So today we have Nick Thompson, he's more than just somebody who was on a reality TV show that everybody knows. He's way more. So we're going to talk about all the great things that he's up to in the world. And this is really exciting because he's a storyteller. So if you guys have been listening to me for any amount of time, and even if you haven't, I love stories too. And so I saw that and I'm like, okay, Nick, we're going to talk about storytelling. He's also very passionate about building human connections to remove stigmas, especially around mental health, holistic lifestyles, culture, free speech, and more. And he has an amazing podcast himself, which is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. And I'm sure there's a reason why it's called Eyes Wide Open. Because from what we've talked about, your eyes have been like almost like glued open with everything that's going on around in some of the industries that you've been
like the toothpicks, right? When you're trying to stay awake.
Yeah. Like all bloodshot. So Nick's seen a thing or two. But from what we've talked about, Nick, I think that this has really been a positive thing because now you're driving nonprofits and other areas that are really needed. And we're going to talk. I don't want to give it away. So that's why I'm hesitating because like, I don't want to give it all away because he's going to tell us about it. But yeah, you coming on to the show and I'm really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell everybody a little bit about your background because you have a background in marketing, which is even better.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. So marketing is my area of expertise from a professional level. I've been a marketing executive in softwares, primarily in smaller businesses and startups for about 6 years. And before that, I worked across various marketing functions from product marketing, solution marketing, brand marketing, a little bit of demand generation. I did some B2C, B2B, all of it. So it's my background from marketing came to me in a marketing class I took in college, my first year as an elective. And I was like, oh, I actually really like this. And so that's kind of where I ended up here. And it's that storytelling element, right? Because you are telling a brand story or a product story or whatever that is when you're in that type of marketing role. So that's who I am, professionally and personally. I'm a big wellness nut, mental health advocate, as you mentioned. I think it's very important to blend the world of what we experience as individuals and what we experience in our professional life as well. So I write a lot about that on LinkedIn and the role as a leader and of having empathy and leading the right way instead of leading through, dictating how things need to go. And then the interesting thing is I have this whole new side of marketing that I got to experience, as I hate to use the term influencer, but like as an influencer, and someone who has worked with influence marketing before. So it's a interesting comparison there. And then lastly, I am an activist, which we'll probably get into a little bit about that. I've been an activist in politics and in my community since 2008. When I worked on and volunteered for the first Obama campaign on my college campus.
Oh, wow.
Then I've been, man, I just lately outside of my own organizing, I worked with Brandon Johnson, who just won the Chicago mayor
Wow.
election. I think it was March or April. I forget when it was. So I worked on that campaign as well.
Oh, wow. So you have extensive experience in both like marketing and then even digital marketing because they're two different types of marketing, but geez, if you can combine the power of both
Totally.
of them,
Oh, and
wow.
content too.
And content. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah. So, okay, so you've got all these different things, and then you've got the reality show on top of it. So I love that you bring up that, influence what it's like to do the marketing part and then to be thrown in as an influencer or as a person that becomes an influencer. Wow, that is a lot like getting thrown in the deep end, yes, of the pool.
I would say so, maybe without swim lessons or a life jacket
Yeah.
and hoping you can doggy paddle like a dog would if you threw him in the pool for the first time.
What did I do? Somebody help. So you obviously didn't drown. You're here with us today, and we so appreciate you here and that you made it through. Can you tell me just like cliff notes, like what has that experience been like to be the the marketing person going into what it's like to be an marketer?
Well, I don't think of myself really as an influencer. I don't think
Yeah,
of myself as a brand. I think of myself as a human being with nuances, right? And so
yeah,
there's, the reality TV thing, being on Love is Blind, that's not who I am, but it's something that I did. It's part of
yeah,
who I am. And
yeah,
so, with that goes the whole like influencer thing. Like I'm not an influencer.
yeah,
What do I do? Sometimes I promote products, but I'm very careful about what I do because I have to believe in it and I
yeah,
have to actually think that it can benefit people. So, there's that whole element of it. But the real thing coming out of all of this was, there's a stigma around reality TV
yeah,
cast members where maybe they're dramatic or the redheaded ugly stepchild of Hollywood or the 15-minute of fame celebrity, like whatever
yeah,
people think about them is very contradictory to kind of who I am. So that's
yeah.
been such an interesting thing because I was a marketing executive when I went on that show. I was the interim chief marketing officer at a 250 person company, and I was running a marketing department with I think it was 16 people.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's a big
without a lot
job.
of leadership because we had
Wow.
we had a lot of turnover and to go to kind of have that be such a big part of my identity to then
Mhm.
having my relationship because for those of you who don't know I got married on the show and to have that sort of be undercast by the relationship that people saw an hour and 13 minutes of over the course of 10 episodes it's
Yeah,
it's quite the it's quite the dynamic to sort of adjust to and measure
yeah,
your priorities and prioritize.
yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting because and you and I were talking about this. I'm like, you're exactly, and I know that we're gonna use influencer, and sometimes that even that word can get such a bad taste in people's mouth because of how it's been used. When I think of like the right kinds of influencers, you're actually that type. So whether or not I know you may not love the word, but influence is something when it's the intention, right? So if we think about influence and the intention that we have behind our influence, it can be a positive experience or it can be a negative one. You're definitely the one that leads with the positivity and the leadership. And so more leaders need to be in an influential
Right.
role, right? Like
When I
you.
think the
Yeah.
way people look at influencers, and that's the general public,
Yeah.
that's a business, that's a brand,
Yeah.
that's whomever, it's a manager. You look at them and you don't think of the human being behind there,
Yeah.
why they're an influencer and or content creator or whatever you want to refer them to, and
Yeah.
you just have this transactional um I guess, idea of what they are, right? Like
Right.
you promote my product and I've seen it, right? I've seen the contracts. I've done a few where you're going to
Yeah.
give me 3 reels over the course of 30 days. They're going to be you're going to do one in feed post and you're going to do 5 stories and we're going to pay you $20,000 to do it. And it's such a transactional thing, but that's not really what makes a partnership successful. It
Yeah.
isn't like there's deals that I've done that I have one responsibility from them, like one reel or one store or whatever to post. But to me, like that's not me doing my due diligence. That's not me holding myself to my work ethic. And so if I'm going to be using a product, like I'm going to
Hmm.
be showcasing it more than like what they pay for. And I use air quotes for those that can't see this. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that the quote influencers need to do, but that's something the brands need to do. You
Yeah.
need to build a partnership, a collaboration, and it can't be transactional. It needs to be
Right.
strategic, and it
Right.
needs to make sense for both of you. And let
Yes.
me tell you, as someone who walked away from that $20,000 deal with a
Yep.
brand that I would have never used in my life, or I haven't used in a long time and would never use moving forward,
Yeah.
like that's a tough thing to do as someone who has that opportunity. But that's also a brand should be scouting out the people that make the most sense to align with their brand.
Exactly. So there's a lot that gets to change in influencer marketing, and it's already starting to happen. And sometimes we see it go the opposite of successful before it turns around and comes back around. And so to what you're so you're a little you're ahead. You're ahead. You see it. And I love that you have the marketing background because you can see it. I mean, I've been saying it, hopefully now people will really hear it when you're saying it too. But influencers and brands get to partner on this. Like they really get to partner in the right way where it does get to be strategic. Integrity gets to be a big piece of it, and it's more than just the transaction of like, hey, you're going to do this post. Like we're there's a lot of room for the creator experience in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that really does put it out there, and it does think about the most important thing first is actually the audience, and then it's
Right.
showcasing the brand, and then it's the influencers influence with all of those. So that's kind of like the trifecta of how it could work really beautifully. So I love that you're talking about that coming together with brands and everything. And so just kind of giving people an idea of where you see it going to, because I do think that this is something that not just influencers need to hear, but also brands need to hear when it comes to
Yeah.
partnering with influential people who are very creative and they have a marketing knack like you as well.
Well, so there's different types of influencers too, right? There's people
Yeah.
who maybe go on a reality show and then come off and wake up one day and they have hundreds of thousands of followers. But then there's the different type who are the more experienced content creators that have been creating content to grow their audience, and it's a much more organic growth. Either way, people have the creativity if they are doing this to really develop something that they know works for their audience because they're the experts in doing it. They're the experts in their audience. And
Yeah.
so instead of a brand going, oh, this person has a big following on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, let's work with them. Really review before even reaching out to someone, just review the content, see where you fit in, find some reel or some TikTok that you look at and you're like, that would be a great spot for our brand, or that style of communication would be a great spot for our brand. And really sort of do that base level research to make sure that there's alignment. Because if there's not alignment, even if you have the best content in the world, it isn't going to be relatable. It's not going to be authentic. It's going to be
Yeah.
beautifully edited and whatever else you want to do for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now with the adoption of AI, now we can actually just take their face and hyperpose it in their voice and recreate whatever we want,
Oh,
right? Oh no, we're not
that's
going to go down that
true.
road, I promise. Not
I got
today.
a lot
Maybe
of
we'll.
thoughts on AI.
Oh, look, yeah, I'm making them all stressed out. I'm sorry, Nick. I'll stop. I'll stop. But yeah, like you're right. Like there's all these different things that you can do with it. And I love that you talk about the brands and going and looking at the content creator and the influencer's content and seeing where they could possibly fit in and then doing that reach out because that just makes so much sense. And, I think sometimes, like when it comes to influencer marketing, from my experience, I'm working with brands and working with influencers, is that the expectations are not the same when it
They're
comes
totally
to
misaligned.
misaligned is a really good way to say. Yeah, misaligned in expectations from what the brand wants from the creator, the influencer, and even what the influencer and creator wants to get paid from the brand. So one of the most I love asking this question. Influencers do not love it when I ask this question. I'm like, okay, so what was the ROI on your last project? I don't know. I
Right. Well,
don't know.
but you got to take a step back, right? What's the
Yeah.
measurement of ROI? So let me use this
Yes.
analogy for you. think about Jennifer Aniston and her work with Smart Water, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone can imagine Jennifer Aniston with Smart Water. Is there a code Jennifer to save 10% on your Smart Water order? There's
No.
not. What are they doing instead? They're putting her on billboards. They're putting her in magazine ads. They're putting her in online ads. And I don't even know if she still works with them, but
Yeah.
thinking back to that, she became synonymous with Smart Water,
Yeah.
right? And that means that when that person who saw that billboard or that
Hmm.
advertisement in a magazine goes to the store and they see Smart Water on the end display or in the aisle, they're
Hmm.
immediately associating that with Jennifer Aniston. So
Hmm.
it's awareness. So when you're working with influencers, we all know you can't put up one ad, Google display ad, or one social media ad and expect conversion. It's going to
Hmm.
be a combination of all of those. It's going to be a combination of your influencer stuff. It's going to be a
Yeah.
combination of your content. And you got to view this as a holistic view where that is one type of impression and you
Yeah.
need to hit impressions across various channels. So
Ooh, so good.
which so if you're aligned, so
Hmm.
like for example, one of the brands that I've shared that I use a lot
Hmm.
is I use Dr. Bonner's Castile soap. I make my own body wash with it. I make my own hand soap with it. I make my own. Now I know how to make a foaming wash with it. I
Hmm.
can do so many different things with that soap that I've just learned over time and knowing that like I get rashes if I use soap with certain fragrances and all that stuff. Well,
Yeah.
guess why that makes sense for me? Because I talk about holistic stuff all the time. I talk
Yep.
about wellness. I talk about, all of the various ways that big whatever capitalist thing you want to insert in there
Hmm.
is, kind of putting unhealthy things in front of us. So for
Yeah.
me to talk about Dr. Bronner's and all the ways I use it when
Yeah.
I'm the guy who made his own toothpaste from Love Is Blind, like that makes
That's
sense.
right.
That's a logical
Yep.
brand opportunity to work together, right?
That's
And
right. Yeah.
the same goes with like Bragg's apple cider vinegar. I drink it every day. I use it
Hmm.
in so many different things. I put it in my laundry. Like there's so many different ways that I use it. So when they send me, I don't know, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff
Yeah.
and products, like that makes sense
Yeah.
because that's something that I've used anyway and I know how to use it. And when I talk about how I use it, it's authentic. But
Yeah.
when Head and Shoulders came and was like, here's a pile of cash for a couple of reels that you don't even have to leave up longer than a week.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that was that one, and they want to pay me an astronomical amount of money. It's like, well, the guy who's using Dr. Bronner's, Bragg's ACV, like that guy's using Head and Shoulders for dandruff. Well, I
Hmm.
didn't have dandruff to begin with.
Hmm.
Second of all, if I did, I wouldn't use Head and Shoulders.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense for them. And that doesn't make sense for me because the moment I say I'm using Head and Shoulders for my dandruff,
Yeah.
and people are like, whoa, the guy who makes his own toothpaste is using Head and Shoulders. You know what I mean? It's like, that doesn't add up. And then for them, they're not going to get the ROI because the people that are watching me don't take me seriously.
Right. It actually could ruin your brand and it could ruin theirs too. Like, wow, they're just going to pay anybody to like,
Totally.
and and funny enough, you may not have dandruff until you use it if you're that allergic to some of the
Right,
fragrances
right,
and stuff, right?
right.
I love that. You know what that actually brought up to me when you were talking about the influencer marketing piece and looking at it from like a holistic, really interesting that you're talking about holistic and marketing and you're a holistic person, just pointing that out.
Good point.
There's a good point there. You're just a big picture person. Um, but also, what about the lifetime value of that customer that first started drinking smart water because they saw Jennifer Aniston drinking it? Like that's the other piece too that maybe brands aren't considering and influencers aren't considering is that there's a lifetime value. Like when people think of smart water, they think of Jennifer Aniston, even if she's still not
Mm-hmm.
with them, but they still
Yeah.
drink it.
Well, and
And
think
so,
about how many brands, like let's take a minute.
yeah,
What's a brand that you think of and you
yep,
have like a synonymous celebrity with it?
yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that I can think of is, oh gosh, the Honest Company, but
Jessica
it's run
Alba.
by Jessica Alba. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
always, whenever I think of the Honest Company, I think of Jessica Alba. Like
Well,
just
and
the,
I think of Jessica Alba, but I think about why she did it
yeah,
because that's more on my wavelength because she felt like she was looking around for
yeah,
stuff for her kids and couldn't find anything that was holistically healthy. So
yeah,
she's like, there's obviously a need for this because I'm looking for it. I'm Jessica Alba. I can have whatever I want, and I'm not
yeah,
finding what I want for
yeah,
my kids. And I
yeah,
think like that's the kind of mindset. And of course, she created that company, right? But
Yeah.
that's the mindset that these brands need to have when they are looking
Yeah.
for influencers. You
Yeah.
need someone who's honestly, if it's someone who isn't using your product or a competitor of your product, they're not
Hmm.
right for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point too. So, um, what was I going to say with that? That's a good one. So with the influencer marketing too, like the brands need to think about this, but oh, this is what it is. So a lot of times with like influencer marketing, it's a it's a quantity piece over a quality. So let's just get, 500 influencers all pushing this product. We'll get the numbers then. But what if you could actually save that budget or half of that budget and take that half of that budget and give it to the one influencer with the big following that's perfectly aligned with what it is that that product and that brand represents, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. And I
Yeah.
think too, which I can't remember if we talked about this on recording or before, so
Yeah.
I'll repeat it.
Okay.
But it's that thing where like if it's very transactional, right?
Yeah.
It's you're going to do 3 reels for me on Instagram to your 500,000 followers, and you're going to say use code Nick and save
Yeah.
10%, and we're going to measure the success by that. But what that's really doing is it's creating a transactional relationship, not a strategic partnership. Now,
Right.
if it was like if you flip the script, let's just say on that, and
Mhm.
it's a brand that perfectly aligns with whomever it is, they're maybe already using it. They've
Yeah.
already tagged you in it, something to that extent. They comment and engage with your content, right?
Mhm.
Like though that's where you could be finding these people, or they follow you. Like a
Yeah.
lot of times, I'll find out a new brand, or I'll use a new brand, and I'll
Mhm.
go follow them, and they'll reach out to me
Yeah.
after. And it's like, I just saw your product. I can't wait to try it out. Or, hey, can we send you some product? Try it out. Let us know what you think. Like
Yeah.
those are the types of things that you can slowly nurture that relationship so that
Mhm.
it's organic. And no one may use that code Nick to save 10%, but I just got you 50,000 views, impressions, right? We need to view that impressions and 100 comments of engagement. I did
Yeah.
this one. I'm going to actually look it up real quick because
Oh,
this is
nice.
this is this is the perfect example. I have two that I'm really really proud of. One was with a temporary ink tattoo company, and I had been wanting to get a tattoo, but I've
Nice.
always been scared that I'm not going to want it after I grow out of whatever era I'm in,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
I've always been super hesitant on that. But ironically, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I really want to get Eyes Wide Open tattooed on me because this is a turning point in my life where I went
Mhm.
in, I went through Love is Blind, and now I'm going through life with my eyes wide open. And so I really wanted it. And I was like, I really want to get that tattoo.
Yeah.
I think I manifested this because literally like that week they
Yeah.
reached out to me with this super cool it's basically like ink that fades away naturally. It's like biodegradable,
Oh,
and
wow.
it fades away naturally in like 1 to 2 years, depending on your skin type, how much fluid you drink, your body, all of that stuff. So it's really, yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. But I
Yeah.
had, what did I get here? I don't even, oh, it's not even going to say on here. I just pulled it up. So I did a reel, and that was all they asked for. They asked for a reel. I got, the tattoo was for free. The tip was included, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. And I made a reel. It took me about an hour because editing a reel on your phone is actually pretty hard, especially if you've got like giant hands like I do. But
Yeah.
this thing here, I think it hit over 100,000 views. I
Wow.
had plenty of comments. I had 2,000 likes, and those are all impressions. And I had
Yeah.
people asking questions about it. How
Yeah.
long does it last? Keep us posted. I got DMs. I got, where did you get this? Can I get it here? All of
Yeah.
that stuff. And those are things that you're not necessarily measuring the impact. But I
Mhm.
guarantee you, many of these people have at least inquired about this and now know this exists, where they didn't
Yeah.
know it existed before, especially
Yeah.
being somewhat of a newer brand that's only been around a couple of years and just came to
Right.
Chicago. So that's one of those things where it was like, this was, of course, stars aligning a little bit, but
Yeah.
a very authentic thing where I'm like, I didn't know if I want this tattoo my whole
Yeah.
life, but now I've got it. It's only going to be here a year or two. And then if
Mhm.
I want to get it permanent, I can go get it permanent. And
Yeah.
so I'm telling an authentic story in this reel
Yeah.
based on what this means to me, why I'm doing this, and what's going to happen, and what my thought process was, as
Hmm.
opposed to some other random company coming out and saying, hey, make some reels about your dandruff and how Head and Shoulders helps you live a better lifestyle, you know? And then I have another one with Crean Street Bakery. So I'm gluten free.
Hmm.
And they reached out right after the show came out and they were
Yeah.
like, hey, we're in Canada. We just expanded to the US in a couple of states. We'd love to send you some product if you'll try it.
Yeah.
We nurtured this thing for a year before we
Yeah.
finally did something together. And
Wow.
they're like, here's some of the stuff we're thinking. And they're
Yeah.
like, what do you think? And I'm like, let's go, let's go to a burger place and let's
Hmm.
bring the gluten-free buns and we'll make it funny where I'll order it without a bun. And
Yeah.
then when it gets there, I'll just like pull out of my bag a whole thing of gluten-free buns. I'll put the burger on and we'll eat it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's an authentic thing that I've been gluten free 10 years. Like
Yeah.
I did that
Yeah.
until now so many places have it, but like
Yeah.
I used to have to do that. And
Yeah.
so like that's something that people are looking to be like, I've done that, or oh, I
Yeah.
thought about doing that, or maybe I could do that. And now I'm associated with that brand. And we did like
Yeah.
a funny little sit down interview where I talk
Yeah.
about my gluten free journey, like all of these things because it's
Yeah.
me and I have a gluten free journey,
Yeah.
right? And I'm using these products, and they sent me all their products multiple times,
Yeah.
and we're like, are you using them? Do you like them? What do you eat? What do you not eat? We don't want to, we don't want to do something that isn't
Yeah.
authentic. And we
Yeah.
did lastly on this. So we did a barbecue haul where I was at the grocery store and
Yeah.
then I grabbed the buns.
Yeah.
But they were like, okay, so like, what would you do if you were doing a barbecue? And I'm like, well, here's all the things I would go. They just followed me around and let me just go grocery
Yeah.
shop and then
Yeah.
edited that together. And I grabbed the buns at the end. Or
So good.
we did another one where, so one of my, not proud of this, and it's actually relatively new in the last, like I started to love bagels. I've never been a big bagel person, but I
Yeah.
love cream cheese. So I think it's like my avenue to eat cream cheese.
Yeah.
But so it was like, I'm like, here's what I do when I buy bagels. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to do this. I know I'm not going to do it all the time, but I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah.
And so it's just very authentic. And then the people who are like, God, I love bagels too, and oh, I haven't had a good bagel since I've been gluten free. So
Hmm.
you're tapping into that humanity, that realism, that relatability when it's
Yeah.
something that, like, if I wasn't gluten free, these things
Yeah.
wouldn't be any personality to them.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, it's almost so you being an influencer and having that real life experience of being gluten free and then them taping you and editing it. I mean, that's a commercial. That's like a commercial that is memorable. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically have created not just a post, like an influencer post, but you've created a commercial for them that they can use in a real life scenario. And so that's like the beautiful thing about when you can do this in a very authentic, real way. People can relate to it. And when they can relate to it, then they can remember it. And when they can remember it, next time they're in the grocery store, they're going to buy it. That's that bun.
That's
That's that
exactly it.
bagel. That's what it is. And so it's to you and I, it's like very, well, why would you do it any other way? But that's the other thing is that
Because
me,
people view follower like, and
yeah.
this is something I learned from my friend who has a social media influencing agency where
Hmm.
they rep models, and they repped me for a little bit too.
Hmm.
Shout out to All Influence. But
Yeah.
the thing that she said to me, because when I started talking to her, I'm like, I woke up one day, I had 300,000 followers. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't like, I know this is who I am. Like, these are the three pillars of the things I want to talk about. My last publicist said you can't talk about any of those three things because oh, this is a little bit I'll sidetrack because it's kind of funny, I think. But so when I first went on the show,
Hmm.
publicists that my ex and I got were like, okay, we did like an onboarding call. Like, what are you passionate about? I'm like, I love news and politics. I want to talk about mental health and really like self-care because that was the big thing that helped me. And
Yeah.
then I want to talk about like holistic wellness, and like I make a lot of my own products and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, well, you're not going to be able to talk about news and politics because it's too dividing. You
Yeah.
can do the mental health stuff, but keep it kind of high level. You don't want to get too serious about it. And
Yeah.
then the holistic stuff, like, okay, but like don't do too much of it because you're going to turn off big brands. I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
so I can't be myself. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? They're like, well, what about
Yes.
sports? I'm like, I love sports. I'd love to go talk about the Bears on a local radio show or something, but like,
Yeah.
it's just
But
not what I get up and live and breathe every single day.
right. Right.
So any chance that you get someone who the inauthenticity of me, and again, sports is different, but like the
Yeah.
inauthenticity of me talking about Head and Shoulders, if
Yeah.
I would have gone that route and taken that recommendation. And when I
Yeah.
went and I talked to Harley at All Influence, and
Hmm.
she's like, I actually take the complete different approach. You have
Hmm.
300,000 followers, talk about politics like it's pop culture,
Yeah.
talk about your self-care routines, just throw your phone up when something enters your head, record
Yeah.
it, post it. And then yeah, like once a week I need you to share a DIY thing,
Yeah.
or reel or something. And
Hmm.
so she's like, those are the ways that you need to do it, because you'll, A, this is you,
Hmm.
B, you'll attract the right people. And she's like, and if you lose 60, 70%, I forget what number she said, like 70% of your followers, you're
Hmm.
going to have 30% that's engaged. And so
Yeah.
that's why I would encourage these brands and
Yeah.
influencers, but these brands, because I think it's more on the brand responsibility to make sure it's something that aligns with them.
Yeah.
Don't look at follower count, because I could post something, and sometimes I do. Like I
Hmm.
post some stuff and it like gets no engagement.
Hmm.
And it's not that it's off brand, it's just the nature of the beast,
Hmm.
right? So like you gotta take the ebbs and the flows, and you've got to stop worrying about follower count and worry about the things that are on brand for both of you, with the things you
Right.
come together, because
Right.
that's where you're going to get maybe less engagement, but the
Hmm.
engagement you're going to get is going to be much more worth your time than
Yep.
reaching 300,000 people.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about this all the time on my LinkedIn platform, digital marketing. I'm like, you know what? I would rather 50-50. Like, I'm so happy with 50% not being happy with it and leaving, and then keeping that 50% because it's a lot of work to keep people engaged who don't want to be engaged. Right. Oh,
Right.
sorry. We're talking about Love is Blind here, right?
Well, it's interesting too, and something that I think brands should look at. And
Yeah.
I'm shooting myself in the foot before breakfast here, but
Yeah.
if you look at somebody who has a large following from a reality TV show or
Yeah.
from some sort of competition or game show,
Hmm.
you got to remember half of those people are hate following them. And I
Right.
hate to say that, and sorry, all of my fellow reality TV cast members out there. Half
Yeah.
of your followers are probably hate following you,
Hmm.
and the thing when you get an influencer that comes up organically through their content creation and the relationship that they're building with their audience,
Hmm.
that type of engagement is going to be much more efficient and much
Hmm.
better for your brand, again assuming you follow all of those things we've already talked about,
Hmm.
than going to someone who has 1 million followers because they were on The Bachelor or Love is Blind or The
Hmm.
Bachelorette. And those 1 million followers, half of them are hate following. And now it may be a numbers game, and you may be
Yeah.
able to get that same amount of engagement, or you may be able to get that same amount of brand awareness.
Yeah.
But those people are, first of all, it's going to cost you more money because the 1 million
Yeah.
followers is much more than the $100,000 follower. But
Yeah.
also, you're going to get like a more authentic engagement, and there's already that trust there. Where if it's someone who woke up overnight and had all the followers, that
Yeah.
trust, it may not be there, and there's probably people there that aren't there for them.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, it does get more expensive. And then you think about the filtering process that that takes on the brand's end. Just knowing what I know about funnels and all and the
Mm-hmm.
systems behind all the marketing that we see out there, that is even more. So it just really goes back to that quality over quantity piece. And so
Yes.
picking those influencers that, well, I think the first thing you said is that, well, they actually use the product, right? Product of the product, which is so true. And not looking at the likes or anything, but looking at the alignment. So
Right.
get get rid of the we have to look at how many likes and comments, and we're going to use that as our algorithm for whether or not we hire this particular influencer, and just look at alignment. Like, does it make sense? Do a little
Right.
more research. It's just going to take a little bit more. And then you don't need, if you're looking at an aligned influencer that is going to be or is a product of the product, and they've taken the time to get to know their audience, to nurture their audience, and to build the trust with the audience, there's a better likelihood that those numbers are going to work in your favor. So you won't need as
Right.
many of those types of influencers to make an even bigger impact.
And a lot of it, and you mentioned that, I think you mentioned algorithm. A lot of it is the algorithm. I have some reels that go a million, and then I have some that go 10,000, and I
Yeah.
have 330,000 followers.
Hmm.
So a lot of times it doesn't even, it's the algorithm.
Yeah.
You could, and again, some of those million, how many of
Yeah.
those are my followers? How many of those people even know who I am? Or did
Yeah.
I just catch it at the right time with the right piece of content, with the right sound? You
Yeah.
just don't know. And it's
Yeah.
a black box. So build on the alignment and trust that process.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wanted to add a minute ago that I didn't say too is just because someone hasn't used your product or hasn't heard of you, I'm
Hmm.
not saying don't work with them if
Right.
the values align. So
Yes.
like if a competitor to gluten free bread wants to
Hmm.
come to me
Yeah.
and say, hey, we saw you work with Queen Street Bakery.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? Sure, I'd love to try your products
Yeah.
and send me some buns or whatever it is. I'll try them. And
Hmm.
if I genuinely think that there's something there, then we
Hmm.
can start talking. But
Yeah.
then I'm using it. And so if they align value wise, align
Yeah.
content wise, align message wise, just because they haven't heard of you or haven't used your product or use a competitor, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you can go away. Because imagine this
Hmm.
new bakery comes to me, and this is totally
Hmm.
fictional, by the way. This new
Hmm.
bakery comes to me. I like it better. And
Yeah.
now I've got a transition story. So I used to try these other products, the ones you'd find in your local freezer section. And
Yeah.
then I found, company X who produces gluten-free bread and
Yeah.
all sorts of different gluten-free items. And I've
Yeah.
actually transitioned to make them what I prefer now. And
Yeah.
so you've got like a whole different type of story at that point, and it's
Hmm.
authentic. And
Yeah.
that resonates. People see through the BS.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I don't know. What was coming to me is just like somebody, like a gluten-free company, a bakery, reaching out to you, just like, Nick, we've got a better bagel for you so your cream cheese doesn't have to be so lonely. So,
Foodies can stay away, but the rest of
yeah,
them,
it's
like,
like, so you're not like those people that eat sticks of butter and sticks of cream cheese. You actually have something to put it on. I don't know why that came in. I think I just
no
gave like
comment.
no. Oh, Nick likes to eat sticks of cream cheese. Okay, well then a cream cheese maybe they've got better cream cheese out there for you too, right?
I
They
do
can
love
always come
cream
to you.
cheese.
He
Yeah,
loves
all of
cream cheese.
it.
Better bagel and better cream cheese, guys. Like you brands that are watching that have that, or you know the brands. Tell them Nick's your guy. I love it. Okay, so I know we've been talking quite a bit before this and we're getting close to time too, but I really want to go into okay, so everything that you've experienced and you know, ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And it was quite an experience. It was a chapter. I liked how you said that before we hit record that this was a chapter. Love is Blind is a
Mhm.
chapter. But you noticed some things, not just notice, but at the beginning we're saying your podcast is eyes wide open with Nick
Mhm.
Thomas. So there's a
I'll
reason
say,
why. Your eyes are open
yeah,
now. It's very eye-opening experience. We'll just say that. So
yeah.
you don't have to go into the experience, but I love what you're doing from the experience, which is the nonprofit. So tell everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah, so coming out of this whole environment of filming a reality TV show, especially one where you're making decisions on getting engaged to someone you've never seen and then getting married, and it's a pressure cooker environment. So
Yeah,
you're making these insane decisions every single day for weeks and weeks that will alter your life and they
yeah,
will change the course of your life. And as you're going through this, or at least I was so hyper focused on my relationship and was this the right time to get married? I mean, we knew
yeah.
we wanted to continue, but like what, all these pressure going by. And when I finally got removed from it
Hmm.
and I took some time and I looked back and I was like, can I swear on here or no?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. I swear like a fire. You're good.
Okay, good. I look at it, I'm like, that whole situation is really fucked up.
Yeah,
From the moment you get there and they don't let you talk to your fellow cast members,
yeah,
obviously not the women because of the concept, but not allowed to
yeah,
talk to the men that I was with.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to leave my hotel room. They took my phone, they took my wallet, they took my cash, they took my passport. I had nothing that identified me as Nick Thompson. And
Mm.
I was locked in a hotel room without a key. So I couldn't leave without going to a wrangler and then having them know that I left when I wasn't supposed to leave to let me back in.
Oh my
So
gosh. Sounds like something from
it's
the Hunger
an
Games. Wow.
well, I've been describing this as the Hunger Games
Wow.
lately.
Hmm.
But like that whole process and going through that, and the fact that like we got married in 7 weeks and they didn't offer us any counseling, any support, they're just gone. They're just
Yeah.
production is just gone the day after you're done filming. And you don't hear from them again until it gets time for the show to come out, which you
Yeah.
haven't seen. And so this whole process and my whole relationship, my what they put my ex-wife through
Yeah.
from a mental health perspective, and how they just exposed her insecurities and triggers and used them against her, and privately would say that I was saying things that I wasn't saying, and
Wow.
that things were happening that weren't happening, all to elicit a reaction out of her.
Yeah.
And then just going through my own, challenges afterwards, and going through a very public divorce. It's devastating. And these
Yeah.
contracts they have say that they can defame you, they can misrepresent you, that you don't have any recourse whatsoever. You are bound by an NDA. Every time you
Yeah.
speak out against the edit, they can fine you $1 million. It's like, what the fuck
Wow.
is going on here? And
Hmm.
so I started looking into this a little bit more earlier
Hmm.
this year. And my co-founder, Jeremy Hartwell, he
Hmm.
he was also he bore the child, right? It was his idea. And I just kept saying,
Yeah.
I'm not taking on big reality TV.
Yeah.
It's I'll stick to like big pharma, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's it's like, holy cow. And when I started reflecting back on it, and I started
Hmm.
thinking like, this isn't right. And I was like, I am done with
Yeah.
all this reality. I don't want to talk to anyone from the show. I'm not friends with anyone from the show, really.
Yeah.
And I just want to close this chapter of my life and move on. But
Yeah.
I couldn't get this feeling out of me that was like, I always believed that someone should say something. But then as I got older, and I'm like, well, if no one's saying something, maybe I should say something.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, I have to make this decision. I will obviously, there's always that thought in your head, like, am I going to go on another show? Right? There's always that thought. I
Hmm.
didn't want to go on another show. I didn't really have
Yeah.
desire, but it crossed my mind because I was like, this is
Hmm.
it. Like, I'll never be invited anywhere. So it's like the 15 minutes is up.
Yeah.
I'm now going to become a pariah. And is that something I'm really willing to do?
Yeah.
And it comes down to, I have integrity. It's one of my
Yeah.
core values. I have integrity, and I felt the need to fight back against the exploitation, against the unfair labor practices, and
Hmm.
against the lack of mental health and legal support for reality
Yeah.
cast members, because you don't have any. And
Yeah.
the damage that edits can do, the damage production can do, working 18 to 20 hours a day, you make virtually no money. They make millions, if not billions, off of you. And then they're
Yeah.
streaming you and you're not getting any residual. So you're just left, chewed up, spit out, and left for dead. And
Hmm.
this is really like an industry that has escaped common labor practices. There is no SAG-AFTRA, there is no WGA, there's no Producers Guild, there's no Directors Guild. Reality cast members are all out there on their own. They don't have any negotiating power. They're a dime a dozen, and there's a million people waiting behind the one that might have just been cast. So they get away with this, and they've
Yeah.
gotten away with this. And that those days are coming to an end,
Yeah.
because there needs to be change in this industry. We can produce ethical reality TV, and
Hmm.
that's what the UCAN Foundation, or Unscripted Cast Advocacy Network,
Yeah.
is there to do. We're there to provide legal and mental health support for future, current, and past cast members.
Yeah.
And then we are also advocating for change in the industry so that we can remove these barbaric labor practices, stop exploiting people, and make sure that people have, some collective negotiating power.
So good. So that's the UCAN. So UCAN Foundation, guys. What's the website for everybody? They want to look it up.
UCANfoundation.org,
Yeah.
UCANfoundation.org,
.org.
where
Love
you
it.
can donate. We have achieved our requirements to be a 501(c), which means everything's tax deductible. We're still waiting on the actual like government designation, but they've approved it. It's the government, they take forever. But donations, get involved.
Yeah.
all of any donations and stuff that we have that we
Yep.
acquire that goes directly into the program. Nobody at this time is taking any kind of salary, any kind of money. We're all doing it pro bono because there's
Yeah.
a really big need for it. So I really
Yeah.
encourage people to check that out.
That's so good, guys. So go check out youcanfoundation.org. Oh, it's such good timing for this too, considering the strikes and everything that are happening in Hollywood. So, I mean,
Well,
it's
that's
not
the
just,
thing. There's more reality TV production going on than ever. And this is history has shown us that in
oh,
2008,
wow.
1988, the last
Yeah.
strikes. So, like the 80s, that was when we got cops. That was when we got,
Yeah.
uh, what's his name? Jerry Springer. Gosh, I can't believe I forgot.
Oh,
That's when we
yeah.
got Jerry Springer, which, by the way, I've talked
Wow.
to people that did talk shows and they were exploited the exact same way. And then
Yeah.
in 2008, when the WGA went on strike, that's when we got The Bachelor. That's when we got, all of these explosions of all of these new types of
Wow.
shows, and that's
Wow.
happening again. And there's
Wow.
there's just going to be more damage and more exploitation. And people, I mean, I've talked. I
That's
think I
it.
told you I've talked over 50, 60 cast members from different shows, and it's
Yeah.
cooking shows, it's dating shows, it's competition shows, it's game shows, it's talk
Yeah.
shows, and there's no regulation, there's no rules, there's no nothing. It's just gone completely unregulated. So there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah. And I love that you have this and you're starting to move the pieces forward for your experience. So and I was telling you this before we hit record, is like, there's always good things that come and you are probably one of the few that's making a really good thing come from such I'm just going to say a very traumatic experience,
Mhm.
not
Thank you.
something that's of the norm. So I appreciate everything that you went through to get to where you are so that you can make the impact that you're making and are going to get to continue to make. So thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for saying that. And I just want to remind everyone, like, it's not about me. Like, no
Yeah.
one ever got rich or famous from a not-for-profit organization. It's
Yeah.
about all of us. It's about those that have yet to come. It's about those
Yeah.
that have no idea what they're signing up for. And we've just got to take care of each
Yeah.
other, because just because you're on a reality TV show doesn't mean you're not a human being.
Right. I mean, reality TV is supposed to be about the human experience, right? And like in
Ah,
real time. I that's what I was like, is it
yes.
really? He just said it all with just a one like a ha. So
Ah,
he just said everything that you guys need to know about reality TV show with just that one piece. So Nick, I really appreciate you so much for coming
thank
on
you.
and talking. How can people get a hold of you if they want to, and brands can get a hold of you, or just even your fellow reality TV show participants or people who are going into it, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so if you are from a reality show or any type of unscripted show,
Mhm.
come to the youcanfoundation.org and get in touch with us. You'll be able to talk to me, or you'll be able to talk to someone, just to, even if you just need to share your experience,
Yeah.
you need some advice, you need mental health support. We have over 400 therapists across I don't know, I think it's like even Canada now we have some.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
like, we can get you matched up with some support if you need it. I know choosing a mental health professional is difficult from my own experience. And then
Yeah.
for me, you can find me at N Thompson 513 on Instagram,
Nice.
at Nick Thompson 513 on TikTok. Search Nick Thompson on LinkedIn. You can find me
Yeah.
there. I post a lot of mental health and mental health in the workplace content there, as well as marketing tips and tricks and all of my learnings there.
Yeah.
And then
Fantastic.
lastly, you can come to my website, which is engagewithnick.com, where I talk about all of this stuff even a little bit more.
Oh, love it. All right. We will have those links on the show notes page, of course, for everybody. But, if you need to re-listen to this, and you can go and find them if you're listening on audio as well. But we'll have those available for you guys too. And just listen to the outro on this podcast, and we will tell you where to go get the show notes. Okay. Well, I appreciate you, Nick, so much for
Thank you.
coming on and just sharing so much of your knowledge, your expertise, and then your experiences and your next steps. So we really appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. We'll be back next week with another episode. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of Minds of the Mighty podcast. And wasn't Nick amazing? So if you guys want to learn more about what Nick is up to, go to www.engagewithnick.com. You guys can also follow him on Instagram at nthompson513. You guys can check out his organization, his foundation at www.youcanfoundation.org. That's you, the letter U, can, foundation.org. So go and check him out, give him your support, give all the other reality stars your support, and we will see you next time on Minds of the Mighty podcast. And don't forget to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and share as well if you loved this episode and are ready for more. Until next time, bye for now.